Hold on tight for the next hour. You're entering into a place, a zone called the alternative to the alternative media. It's a place, a special place where even truth seekers fear to tread.
All right, people, let's move like we've got a purpose.
Affirmative.
Okay, I guess we're going to keep the week going on the Investigative Journal on this September 26th. It's a Tuesday. Yes, it is. I checked the calendar, and I'm sure it's September 26th, 2017, and I'm sure it's Tuesday, but I don't know what the hell's going on in this world. And maybe if we talk about it a little bit today, we can figure it out. I'm Greg Anthony, Investigative Journal. I'm here every week, Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. on First Amendment. You can catch me at YouTube and also at my website at greganthonysjournal.wordpress.com. And you can get all my shows going back over 12 years regarding what I call the Vatican-led New World Order. If you go to my website right now, the first thing you're going to see is a listener-supported pledge drive, and I want you to go there and hit that donate button and give whatever you can to keep this show on the air. I want to thank some people for doing that this week. I got a better turnout than I thought. We got a few people, but we need a little bit more to keep this going, because I'm telling you, I'm reaching a point where it's almost like I can't believe this is happening. But that's the same thing going on in the world. And two stories that kind of upset me, where I checked them out on YouTube, and they were both verified. But Orange County listeners, I mentioned this the other day, but I thought I'd mention it again because I think they're telling us what's going to happen. And Orange County listeners got interrupted by an emergency broadcast, you know, where you hear, and then you know, this is a test, 60 seconds. But this was funny. Some guy got on, somebody said it sounded like Hitler, and he said, "Prepare for the end times. There's going to be great tragedy." And this went on for a little bit. Scared the hell out of a lot of people. Yes, Cox Cable and Spectrum Cable in Orange County, California admitted this went on, and they had some cockamamie reason why it did. But that's interesting. Second story, FEMA's bringing in barges. You know, you ever see those container ships that carry cars from Japan to America? They're like that, except they look like prisons. They're 3 stories high. If you look inside, they got pictures of them. They were like prison cells. And they want people from Port Arthur and around Houston who don't have homes to go live on these. And some people are saying no, because if we go, we're never going to get out. It looks like prisons. Go to my website and check out those 2 little small videos. You won't believe what you see. Now, another story upsetting me. I don't know if you saw about this, but rumors of North Korea missile hit in Washington state after explosion registers as M2.6 earthquake. Update. Delete event after I reported. Oh, that's interesting. Who said that? Oh, maybe it's a co-intel guy, but let's see it anyway, you know. And it says this. Something caused the U.S. Geological Survey to detect what initially, this just happened the other day, or today, 1:46 a.m. Pacific U.S. time. That was when I was sound asleep like a baby. And, you know, if the world ended right there, please, if the world's going to end, do it when I'm sleeping. You know, if you're going to, like, nuke everybody, do it during a period of time when I am sleeping so that I don't even have to get up, because I don't feel like running around getting toasted. Just toast me while I'm sleeping. But something caused the U.S. Geological Survey to detect what initially appeared to be an earthquake 11 kilometers west of Colfax, Washington. Now, I don't know where the hell that is. Do you know where Colfax is? We have more of these small little towns in America. The New World Order wants to wipe them all out. You know, and you can't blame them. They can't keep track of them. Colfax, Washington. That's one of 200,000 little towns. That's why they want to wipe it out and create these mega cities so they can keep track of everything. We can't have things like this. People living in the country, eating fresh food, drinking good water, making their own laws. No. It's way, way out of hand. We cannot allow that. So this happened in Colfax, Washington. The USGS then modified its report to declare The incident was an explosion. Okay, so it wasn't an earthquake, it was an explosion which took place at a depth of 0.4 kilometers, 0.4 kilometers. Now, does anybody know the measurements between a kilometer and a mile? See, you should have studied this in school. A half kilometer above the ground. Now, trouble is, no one is willing to say what exactly exploded. Could it be squirrels were waging war on each other? Yes, squirrels. They're getting pretty smart. Maybe they snuck into a nuke camp, took some nuclear weapons, went down there to kill the enemy squirrels. That's what I'm thinking is going on. But anyway, trouble, and no one is willing to say what exactly exploded. Everything from the local, state, and federal level is 100% hush-hush. Residents are quietly rumoring it was a missile impact from North Korea. Normally, well, that has to hit the ground, doesn't it? First, before it explodes under? Or did they say the explosion went 0.4 kilometers down? I thought I understood it to mean the squirrels were under there waging nuclear war against the enemy squirrels. When I was a kid, we used to play a game called the Meanies and Neighbors. I'll tell you about that later. Normally, and it happened to be with the underground people. Oh, we were creative kids back then. Now they do it on the internet. Now they have to have a game to create those games. And everybody's going, what's the Meanies and the Neighbors? Greg, please tell us. I will. That's why you're going to listen to the end of the show. But anyway, normally when the U.S. Geological Survey detects a mining or quarry explosion, they describe it as such. Not today. No. This particular incident is simply being called explosion on the USGS website. I checked it out. Yes, it is. Look for yourself. Okay. Go ahead. I dare you. Don't do it during the show, though. Event deleted. Wow. It just went away. That's what happened. It was there, then it went away. So when you go, it's not going to be there. No explanation, just gone. Except the image you see above for the story was a screenshot of the USGA map of Google Cache. And it still shows the page. See, if you're a sneaky person, you go to the cache, and you see if it was once there and now deleted mysteriously. And then you're going to say, why? Just like Professor Clouseau would never stop until he figured this out. So I want one of you, my listeners, to do that for me and report back to me, the supreme investigator of what I call the Squirrel explosion in Washington, Colfax, Washington. A quick review of Google Earth shows pretty much nothing in the area, which might account for mining or quarry activity. Here's an aerial view that I'm looking at. You can't, but if you take the time to find it, you will look. Looks like some type of small business nearby. The rest of the area is mostly undeveloped, except for the squirrel. They're not showing the squirrel compound that's near there. Yep, that I can tell you is true. There are a few homes, but not vast industrial complex account for such an explosion. Making this even more bizarre, there's no media attention. Why is that bizarre? The media doesn't ever do anything but just report on what the government and the Vatican tell them to do. Yes. Now, to give you an idea just how big this explosion was, it was bigger than the WTC collapse on 9/11, except that involved a demolition of buildings in New York City. To give you an idea, it was M.26 explosion, which would have been back on 9/11-1. CNN reported the collapse of the World Trade Center towers at an M.2 earthquake. 2.0. So this was bigger. Oh, those squirrels. I'm telling you, they snuck into a nuclear facility. I'm sure of it. You know, they're smart. I don't know if you know that. I do, because I grew up on a farm and I used to try to catch them. They're pretty smart. So the WTC collapse, a real big, noisy, noticeable thing, was actually smaller than what took place this morning in Colfax, Washington. Why no news? Why no beep from the locals? I spoke to several folks, this man said, that's reporting this. I spoke to several squirrels, so that's even better. And I'm not even going to tell you that it's an anonymous squirrel. It's an anonymous source. I spoke to several folks via telephone who have several miles away, and they are hearing rumors. Just rumors, no facts yet, that a missile struck the area. The rumors go on to say it was North Korean. How the hell do they know that? Could have been China. Could have been Russia. Could have been Uzbekistan. Could have been anybody. ISIS. How do they know? It's what, they have a name on it? Or they saw something like, hey, this is North Korea flying over with a missile. And maybe next time it will contain a nuke. Whoa. Well, those squirrels already got it. Don't worry about it. Others speculated that was an actual attack, but the warhead may not have gone off the property. It's completely substantiated bizarre rumors, and I emphasize that for clarity. So if this is nothing, then what registered on USGS seismic scales? I told you. The squirrels blew off a nuke underground because they were fighting the enemy squirrels. And if you want to know why, I'll tell you why. Because you won't believe this, but there's a religious order in the squirrels too, and they instigate all of this stuff. They're called the G squirrels. Yes. And they instigate all wars. And so they did a false flag attack. Okay, now we know the truth. And if it was an explosion, as the USG, what did explode? No one is saying. I wonder, did we get attacked and no one is actually seeing it because war's already started? Now, how can a war start if nobody knows it? It can't be a war. You got to know you got to declare war, don't you? I mean, if I'm fighting with my neighbor and I'm at war with him, doesn't he have to know I'm at war with him? According to Seattle Times, in an older news story, North Korean missiles could, in theory, reach the impact area. Well, wasn't that an exciting story? One that we have to report on. And I've given you the straight truth about the squirrel attack near Colfax, Washington. Okay, you're always getting the up-to-minute true news here. When we go talk about the New World Order shenanigans such as bombings, false flag affair, everything. When we start delving into these stories, you know you're going to get the truth here. Because I had inside information about the squirrel attack. That's when we delve into what the New World Order's doing. For example, I can name 10 things right now. Charlie Hebdo, Sandy Hook, 9/11, Oklahoma City. Is that 10? And everybody, the stories that come out are about as truthful as talking to a squirrel that the government tells you. Isn't that true? But you know something? 90% of the people believe it. Why is that? Because the government is a big entity. They believe anything big, powerful, even though they're evil as hell. That's why they believe the Vatican and the Jesuit order. So I figure, why won't people believe that squirrels snuck into a nuclear facility, stole the nukes, and then went after their enemies underground, provoked by the religious G squirrels who orchestrate wars? Now, if the government told you that, sane people, thinking people wouldn't believe it. But 99% of the American population would, only because the government or the Vatican told them it was that. Now, if I say that, they won't believe me because I'm just a little guy. But you know something, people? Send this out to the mainstream and say, we have figured out what went on in Colfax, Washington with that 2.6 explosion. Now, to continue on, because with the world coming to pieces, I know you want to know about this story. I find it to be the most important story of the day. It's called Mind Control, ? Here's why Egyptian pharaohs were crowned with vulture and serpent heads. Didn't you want to know that? Didn't you ever want to know why they were crowned with serpent heads and vultures? Because the pharaohs of ancient Egypt, remember Yul Brynner? A lot of you guys go, huh? Who's he? I'm not telling you. You got Google to tell you everything. Just go, Google, who was Yul Brynner? And then they'll answer you. How did they do that? It's kind of like, reminds me of The Wizard of Oz, Google. I call Google like every day I call Google and I go, what time is the Cubs game? And she goes, the Chicago Cubs will be playing the St. Louis Cardinals at 5:10 p.m. Pacific time. All right. The pharaohs of ancient Egypt were crowned with headdresses throughout the ages, known to feature the head of a vulture alongside of a serpent. In Revelation 12, what's wrong with just a baseball hat? Wouldn't it be great to see the ancient Egyptians, with a baseball hat on? Or a straw hat, like they used to wear in the 1920s? Or what other kind of hat can we put on them? A whirling dervish? A derby? A top hat? That wouldn't be bad. Can you see an Egyptian walking around with a top hat? Picture Yul Brynner, in that movie, with a top hat on. And then we can put dancing shoes on him, give him a cane, and let him do a little shtick. All right, in Revelation 12, now we get serious. Isn't that true when you're reading? All of a sudden they give you something like this, and then they go in Revelation 12, and then you go, oh, okay, I better get serious here. Doesn't anybody ever laugh about the Bible? I always wondered about that. Not laughing against it, but I mean, it's not the kind of book you pick up for, a joke. If you're a joke, well, you can make jokes about it, but I prefer to have a big, I can't sit down. Well, I cannot go through a day without one laugh and one cry. And I got to cry once, got to laugh once. In Revelation 12, then I say, yes, you're human. In Revelation 12, because I got to check every day to see if I am human. Maybe they're turning me into a robot, like I said yesterday. Now, in Revelation 12, the serpent is known by many names and deceives the world. That poor, why would a snake get that? I was thinking about this. That poor snake, they're not bad. I mean, you see a snake crawling, and you automatically jump up on, to the nearest 5-foot ledge to get away, and it's probably just a harmless grass snake or something. But they've been giving a bad rap. Well, maybe that's because some of them kill you with one bite. What was I'm going to give you a little quiz, and if anybody can answer it tomorrow, I will mention your name on the air. But one of the most deadly snakes was once called the step-and-a-half snake. Tell me why and where it came from. Okay. And the great dragon, this is Revelation 12. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. The fact that ancient Egyptian pharaohs mounted a serpent directly on their foreheads alludes us to ask, were ancient Egyptians under deceptive mind control of the serpent? I always wondered about that. I went to sleep the other night asking that very same question. Vatican City, St. Peter Basilica is also constructed into an enormous serpent wearing a crown. Well, that doesn't surprise me. Hey, yeah, I can see it right now. The Palazzo del Governatorato of Vatican City is the head seat of the Pontifical Commission for Vatican City. In other words, the headquarters for the government. The origin of the word government stems from the Latin verb governo, governare, and in Italian it's governo, to control. Government means control. So why don't we change that? Why don't we call them, because that's what they do, but we should give them a different name. Government was never, that's really where it comes from. Therefore, government means to control the mind, or in other words, mind control. See how we slipped all that together? Pretty shrewd, huh? The location of the Palazzo del Governatorato of Vatican City is conjugate with the serpent's tongue of St. Peter's Basilica. Is the Vatican under the deceptive mind control of the serpent? The answer, of course, is C. C. Ancient Egypt and Vatican City are two extremely significant examples of the serpent's government. But the reality is the entire world population is under the serpent's mind control. I knew I was under their serpent mind control. Until you are set free by who? By who? Come on, I want to know. Christ. Now that we understand the utmost truth behind the serpent, now that's of course with Christian philosophy. And I know there's a lot of other religions out there, so they can be set free too, I believe. Somehow. I'm not going to be accused of prejudice. Now, Christians will say I'm wrong, but I don't care. Because I'm not trying to be right or wrong. I'm just saying they think they can be set free. And if you think you can be set free, maybe you can be set free. Who are we to judge? Now that we understand the utmost truth behind the serpent and the ancient Egyptian headdress, let's uncover the vulture. You know, I knew this was the most important story today because I always wondered about the vulture. How could he eat anything? I mean, he eats roadkills, everything. He eats dead bodies that die and, that they go out camping in the desert, and then they die, and then before anybody could find them, the vultures get them. Mut, okay, that's M-U-T, is an ancient Egyptian mother goddess deity whose hieroglyphic symbol is the vulture. Hieroglyphic symbol. Still have not, I've been on this earth a long time, and I still can't talk. I don't know, I can't pronounce my goal was to pronounce every word in the English dictionary. And now I'm only got 100 left. That was one of them. Because I want to leave this earth a perfect speller. That was my goal. There's no word that'll get by me. And then I'm going to create a senior citizen spelling bee. When I get to be 80 years old, I'm going to get all those senior citizens up. We're going to have a spelling bee, and I'm going to charge $500 per entry fee. And by that time, I know I'll win. Because I'm the only one that's been studying for this. By the time they're 80, they'll all be senile, so I'll win that contest easy. Okay, this presentation includes the most in-depth significance of the vulture in ancient times, as well as an extremely urgent and prophetic end-time message for our generation. Talking about our generation. People try to tell you now. Who sang that song? All right, here we go. Woe to the rebellious children, saith the Lord, that take counsel, but not of me, and that cover with the covering, but not of my spirit, and they may add sin to sin. I like that. That is a very good statement. That walk to go down into Egypt and have not asked at my mouth to strengthen themselves in the strength of the Pharaoh, and to trust in the shadow of Egypt. Therefore shall the strength of the Pharaoh be your shame, and the trust in the shadow of Egypt your confusion. Notice, though, when I'm looking at the obelisks, looking at them in the City of London, a Vatican City now, and Washington, D.C. You know how we like to make, and they call them, the freedom structures and all this, but it's an ISIS worship symbol, it's a phallic symbol. Notice, though, that in these three ancient obelisks, the entire world system is under the spiritual wickedness of the shadow of Egypt. That's what that's about. So we got the spiritual world under the control of the shadow of Egypt and the vulture and the serpent. We have City of London, financial segment. Then we have Washington, D.C., who is the military power. We all are under the shadow of Egypt. And we've been talking about this for years, and everybody seems to just think it's really not true. But I dare you to go check these obelisks out and do a substantial amount of research, and you'll come away with the same statement that we are under ancient Egyptian control by these mind-controlled government freaks and religious freaks who are Satanists and at worst, and at best, killers. Back in 3 minutes on the Investigative Journal.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on internet. or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org. When it comes to prophecy today, much of the evangelical Christian world has their eyes on Israel, waiting and watching to see when the third temple will begin to be built. The plans are drawn, the Jewish people are eager. Most evangelical Christians today believe that the rapture will happen before the third temple is built. Hi, I'm Michael Eugene. I was taught that Daniel's 70th week was in the future. Is that really what the Bible teaches? Have we searched the scriptures and found this to be true? Why is it so important for a re-established Israel to build a third temple in Jerusalem? Is it necessary to build a temple on the same location already occupied by the Dome of the Rock? Is it necessary for sacrifices to take place in the temple on Temple Mount? Is there really a rapture followed by 7 years of tribulation? What is the New Testament temple? Can we identify history and prophecy? Who is the first beast in Revelation chapter 13? Who are the 7 kings in Revelation 17? I have asked all these questions, and I have found Nicholas Arthur's new book, When the Third Temple is Built, answers all these questions and more using Scripture to interpret Scripture. The Bible says that no prophecy of Scripture is of any private interpretation. Nicholas shows us in his new book, When the Third Temple is Built, how the Bible interprets prophecy and not man's private interpretation. Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org.
The following program is labeled dangerous and off limits by the supreme Jesuit command. But stand tall, people. Listen up, and you may just learn something.
Oh, dear Lord Jesus, this ain't happening, man. This can't be happening, man. This isn't happening.
All right, I bet you're glad we're back. It's September 26th, second half of the investigative show, and I'd like to say go to my website at greganthonysjournal.wordpress.com. You can get shows going back over 12 years regarding the Vatican-led New World Order, all its tentacles, all its deceptions, and most of all, you're going to get some straight talk here. And also, sometimes we like to have fun with it, which is taboo in the world today. Nope, you got to be a serious slave to the system. They got you if you're serious. They got you if all you do is worry about things, wondering what happened. Let me tell you what happened. The squirrels attack us all, okay? And sometimes we win. But anyway, I thought, in the last half hour here, we could do a little soul searching a little bit on both our parts, listeners and me, and go back a little bit in time and figure out a little bit why we got to this point in our life. And what I mean by that is we're born into this world and into bondage, aren't we? You remember The Matrix, that movie The Matrix, what it said in the beginning, you're born into this world in bondage. It's a bondage of the mind. And what that means is that, yes, you want to take the blue pill, the red pill. Do you want to get out of the bondage? Do you want to stay in it? Well, unfortunately, most people don't even know they're in bondage. And when you're born, not only are you born into a government control system that tags you right off the bat with your birth certificate as a bill of lading, as a piece of merchandise that they even borrow off you. We're worth, each American citizen is worth so much money against the debt so that they can loan money or whatever to foreign governments, and they base it on the collateral of the working American people, the working slaves of America that keep this country going. And I told you a long time ago, once you enter into this thing, they're going to get you even before you can think. And if you don't have thinking, if your parents aren't aware of it, and I believe that in the past that they weren't selling this deception, and life was so, easy in a sense during certain periods of America that the deception was not the same as it is today. I mean, there's no parent today that should grow up and not teach their children, when they get of age, to understand it, what the hell is really going on. Now, during that period of time, when a child is in the hands of this government or this state education, or even if you're at a private education, you're getting the same thing, because the Jesuits have infiltrated all of these private schools as well. So you're not getting anything better there. So, you go pay all this money to private school, they're still indoctrinating you with the same thing. You have to protect your children against it. Don't turn them over to the state. I met a person a long time ago, they had two young children, and they refused to send them into the state schools, and they taught them Christian principles and things like that. They shielded them, and that's the proper thing to do. Now, if you're a Muslim, you can do the same thing. Even if you're an atheist, and you're a thinking good person, you can protect your children from this evil state, because what they're going to do is get a hold of these kids before they can even think. Then they got them. They've indoctrinated them. And if they're not one of the pedophiles, if they're not a victim of pedophilia, one of those that aren't either put on a milk carton or abused by these people in these public schools, in these Jesuit schools, kids are lucky. They're indoctrinated with everything. And so it's really difficult. Then it's transferred to the next generation. So there has to be a stop to what I call that control of government, spiritual control, the Vatican spreading its wings like the vulture spreads his wings, to basically put everyone under this shadow of Egypt, or the shadow of the serpent, which is the direct opposite of the shadow of good. Now, no one in this world is ever going to we're not all going to become the same type of spiritual seekers, but there is a common thread between most people who want to get to the truth. Now, sometimes I get a little upset with Western civilization, because they think the only people that can really get to the truth are people from the West who happen to study certain principles of Christianity, and that's completely ridiculous. I mean, there's a lot of smart people, and I've got a lot of smart people all over the world who are... Okay, I had a little glitch in my system here, but so, a lot of people all over the world that, are smart, truthful people, and they might not be of the same spiritual persuasion. So what we really have to do is, look at it and say to yourself, let's get to the truth, and let's not be prejudicial when we do that. So what I thought I'd do is take a little trip down memory lane to try to pinpoint and think about it in your own mind when you really made that transition period from leading the life of an indoctrinated person that came into the bondage of the Matrix, and all of a sudden you began thinking in a different manner, which means you have to strip yourself of some of your belief systems and start over again. It's kind of like when you're training for athletics, some type of sport, and you've been doing it, you've been not succeeding. Sometimes you have to take a break and then start all over again with a new training program. So pinpoint the time when that happened to you, and what were you like before that? And what I'm getting at is people who listen to shows like mine had a transformation, not only in the physical sense, where they get older, wiser as far as certain things you do in your daily life, but there's a transformation in the mind. And that has an ability to also change your physical body, because the mind and body work together. So, and when you're searching for the truth, what brings that about? Well, there's a common element. It's once evil takes hold, there's a natural propensity, just like there's a natural propensity to survive. Let's say that you're in the desert without water, and you've been, so your car just crapped out, and you're in Death Valley, and you got a natural ability. What you're going to go into, you're going into survival mode. And that's a similar thing we're talking about here. Because once you reach a point, I think, that one point, think when it was in your life. Maybe when you were 20, maybe when you were 10, I don't know, 30, 40, 35, 45. And what brought that about? What made you realize I've got to get out of the matrix and the bondage, whether it be spiritual or secular? And what did you have to do? Did it just happen? Coincidence? Oh, wake up one morning, I think I want to search for the truth. No, there's certain things that happen to you. And so, what was that time? Now me, I can only relate to myself, and I can tell you that before when I was in the matrix, I was a third party, journalist, viewing everything and reporting on it. So I was one of these people who really made the matrix really stronger for the people that control you. Because I was a journalist working in the matrix, thinking of little ways to improve the matrix. Oh, I'll get this bad politician, I'll get this bad priest, or whatever, but thinking there is a solution within the matrix. So I was terrible. I was the worst, because I believed in it so much, I wanted to change it for the better when you can't. That's the key. So then, as a third-party journalist, you're constantly looking. And there is an advantage to that, though. Because if you grow up, if you're a young journalist, I started when I was in my early 20s. When you're young and you're doing that, you're constantly training your mind to question everything, but you're questioning the wrong things. And you don't have the general basis or overview of what's going on in the world. And that's what the problem is for most people. But the one advantage of what I had was that I had the natural ability not to believe much, because I've been lied to so many times by politicians, by other people. Now, I wasn't even concerned about religion back when I started this quest. And that's not the quest I'm talking about. I'm in the matrix now, driving the matrix, driving it, looking to change it, but enforcing it, onto people, enforcing its credibility by writing about it, without having the knowledge to really do that. So I was like a journalist fish in a pond that was controlled. But I had no idea about religion. I grew up a Catholic, and I was indoctrinated, like I said, before I even had a chance to think. And so I grew up with that, and I got fed up with it when I was a little after being a teenager, and never, I considered myself by the time I was 22 to be an atheist. Or at best an agnostic then. I could either go one way or the other. On good days I'd say I was an agnostic. On bad days I'm an atheist. There is no God. On good days I'd say, well, there might be. I'm not going to say there is or there isn't. But the whole point is that my awakening came. And when I say awakening, I'm not talking about being born again. I'm not talking about all of a sudden I'm this enlightened person. No. I'm talking about I had to put the spiritual together with the secular. And how I did that was I happened to work in Rome. If I wouldn't have went to Rome when I was a young reporter, I wouldn't have known any of this stuff, I don't think, unless I would have gotten it secondhand. But when I got it firsthand, so to speak, when I saw it before my eyes, when I started to delve into it, it forced me to delve into the spiritual world. And when I started to do that, I had to change my whole belief system. Because, one, by calling myself an atheist or an agnostic, I was denouncing Catholicism only from a point of view that I wasn't sure about it. But I could have went back to it. And I remember when I stepped into Rome, I said, maybe I can give this church a chance. Look how beautiful it is. And I did. I thought that way. But luckily, the information that was presented to me and the questions I asked as a journalist, I found out that organization was corrupt at the top of the serpent's head. And so at that point, I realized there's no way back. You know that story, you can't go home again? Because wouldn't it have been nice? I was thinking, I declare myself an atheist. I go to Rome, I find the church again, and I become a devout Catholic. And I go, I'm back home. All those things they told me when I was a child, now I can understand them. But when it goes the other way, boy, you got a road ahead of you because you don't know who you are. And top that with knowing now that you're in a corrupt government, and you put those two together. And how I did it was this. One, on the secular side. No, let's start with the spiritual side. This is the point I knew I would never come back again, and my search for truth began. On the spiritual side, it was the Vatican Bank scandal and the repercussions of Pope John Paul getting killed. And that opened my eyes to really who they were. So the spiritual world, mine was collapsing. Over. No going back. And on the secular side, you can go to my website today, and I put up support, my radio show, a blog, and a way you can do that to donate. But then I also included the story when I was almost killed in a bombing in the American newspaper, and I explained that, and the story's there. So if you don't believe me, the 1982 story is still there. And when I almost was killed, it gave me the chance of how could this terrorist group do that? And I found out the CIA was involved in it, and they funded the newspaper. Then my whole world was gone. Yes. Not anymore here. Now we're back. Okay, this thing keeps stopping. Okay, so now my whole world was gone. My spiritual world, which I was hoping to regain, I had to start over. And in the secular world, the profession that I chose was totally turned upside down and backwards. So that was the moment I began to fight my way and claw my way out of the matrix. And if I continued, it would be a story way too long and way too difficult to explain in the last 8 minutes of this program. But I wanted to emphasize that part because I'll move forward with some other things right now. But I want you, the listener, to think. What was the experiences, both in your spiritual and secular world, that got you to take that first foot out of the matrix? Now the question becomes, that happened to me years ago. It was a constant journey. It wasn't just always, the yellow brick road to success, finding the truth. It was filled with ups and downs and crisscrosses, and even today the same thing exists. But it was a constant adding information and then dissecting it to peel away everything to get as close as I could to the truth. so that I could get totally out of the matrix. Now, am I totally out of it now? Do you ever get out of it? I am going to say something you may not agree with me. But I don't think, even if you're, let's say you're a total, we're going to use some analogies here. Let's say you are one of the top high priests of the Hindu religion, or you're a top Buddhist, what do they call them, the maestros or whatever. Might not be the proper words, but you know what I mean. Or let's say you're a rabbi, or let's say you're a born-again Christian. Do you ever get out of the matrix because of that? Totally. Now, I'm saying you don't have anything to do with it anymore. Now, many people will say, yes, that's the way I'm now saved, and I'm on my way to, heaven. But the point I'm trying to make is, if you are even a high priest of the Hindus, or you're a practicing Hindu and you believe, and all these, put them all together, are you out of the matrix? My question to anybody that lives in this place we live in, you're never out of it until you're out of it. And what I mean by that is you're bound by your flesh here, whether you like it or not. And the only thing we can do is to understand it totally and to protect ourselves from it. Because they will come after you, no matter if you're a born-again Christian, the serpent will attack you, no matter if you're a Hindu, Buddhist, a rabbi, a practicing Jew that believes in the Torah and you do all the Jewish things, or if you're a born-again Christian that follows every word of God, you're going to be attacked by the matrix and you're not out of it. So what you have to do is protect yourself against it, and the protections always aren't just mental. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of requirements that you have to go through. And the point is, you're not, and somebody will disagree with me here, but God gives us an idea of how to see. And he's not going to say, if there's a big flood, let's say there's a hurricane coming, there's preparations that you have to take to protect your home, right? You're not going to sit there reading a Bible going, honey, don't worry, God will protect us. You're going to put some boards up on your windows. And that's the same thing you have to do when you're protecting yourself against the beast, against the spiritual world that will attack you, or the secular world. You have to prepare yourself. And how do you do that? It's by knowledge. It's by understanding how they operate. Who's the deceivers? Who are the Jesuits? What's their real name? What are they really all about? And you add that to a list of a million things you have to do, and you're still not out of the matrix, but you're fighting to protect yourself against it the best you can so they don't swallow you up totally and turn you into a robot where you would believe anything the government or the spiritual people tell you, especially Christians and practicing Buddhists and all these good people that practice these faiths they believe in, because they've been infiltrated by deceivers, by serpents, by vultures that are going to take it from you if you don't know how to protect yourself against them. And you can't protect yourself against them if they don't come to you they don't look like a serpent or a vulture. They don't come to you that way, so you have to arm yourself with the knowledge, and much of it you get on this program. Now, you're going to get it other places, and I'm telling you, there's people that do it much better than I do. Much more eloquently. I know it. I have a very off-the-cuff show, and I hope that it deals with things in a way that makes you go to other things. And you'll find people that are really protecting themselves against the matrix, against the serpent, against the vulture, and they will help you as well. But the point is, if you don't want that taken from you, if you don't want the protection taken from you, God's giving you the eyes and the ears to see, and he wants you to do something. And that means you're going to have to know how the Jesuits operate, the beast operates, how the government, the controllers operate, so that you can detect who's on what side, who's on the side of good, and who's on the side of the vulture and the serpent. Many people don't have a clue. And you know something? Sometimes people sound so great, they are the serpent and the vulture in disguise. And that's what you have to prepare yourself. Now, how do you do that? You do it by first realizing it takes a lot. And you can't do it all in a day. You got to start somewhere. And I recommend you start where it should be started. All roads lead to Rome, and you start dissecting that. And when you feel like you need to learn more, there is more. And I will say this, you can probably study it your whole life, and there will always be more, because they're a hidden, deceptive organization, along with their government minions at the top of all these big countries, including ours, that have a secret agenda for us. And that's what we're trying to figure out. And that provides the detection. And I will tell you this, whether you're a Hindu, Buddhist, practicing Christian, Catholic who believes in God is being deceived by these people, God wants you to do some homework on it. And it's not only just reading the Bible. And when I say that, I don't say it by saying it's not important to read the Bible. Maybe that's the first book, but you got to go. He wants you to take that step otherwise to protect yourself as well. Now, some people say, well, if I read the Bible, God gives me total protection. I think that's a lazy man's way out. And I don't think that's the way he'd like it. I just have a feeling. I may be wrong. But he wants you to do something. And he wants you to be active in it. And to protect yourself. And to protect those you love and those you want to teach. And I think what he means by, you will hear, it not only means the words that he says, it means looking at the world that he's put you in and helping you get through it so you're not completely swallowed up by evil and Satan and the vulture while you're here. And then once you're not here, you're under the Creator's protection. That's just the way I look at it. Now, you might want to poke holes in it. I'd recommend you do that. You can get in touch with me at gregbeacon@gmail.com. And by all means, let me hear your 2 cents on these matters. But I think we had a pretty decent hour, at least by my standards. And I guess I can't judge it by that, because I've thought some days I've had great shows and they turn out to be duds. And then some days I think I have a dud and they turn out to be a great show. But who cares? We can't measure it all the time, can we? Well, we can measure one thing. Boy, this thing just stops at the worst time. But anyway, have a good night. See you tomorrow on the Investigative Journal.
The book of Revelation says, the spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ. This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188.